All right, we are live. So hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We still have a few minutes, so we'll just wait and make sure everybody has time to join. Looks like we have a pretty good crowd already, so we're going to get started here in a few minutes. Just want to make sure we give everybody time to join. And yeah, feel free to let us know where you're joining us from today in the comments. You'll see at the bottom right hand of your screen, there's a comment section. You can ask questions as well. But yeah, let us know where you're joining from today. I'm from Chicago. This is where Keeper's headquarters are based. Ricky, you're based on the East Coast, right?
That's right. I'm just in the DC metro area.
Nice. But yeah, those webinars are usually fun. We get people from all over the world, so usually fun. Yeah, we have Indianapolis, Massachusetts. Hi, everybody. Yeah, we're about 1 minute away from starting. Oh, we have someone from Virginia, pretty close from you. Yeah, so we're going to get started in a few seconds. Just wanted to introduce myself quickly. I'm Adrien. I work in Keeper Security marketing team. I'm joined today by Ricky from the Migus Group, and we're going to talk about going passwordless today with Passkeys, SSO, and Biometrics. I'm sure everybody on this webinar are going to say that they hate passwords. They're a pain to use and remember, and billions of them just end up on the dark web at some point. So, and they're also the main cause for data breaches. So the future is trending more and more towards a fully end-to-end passwordless authentication process. And this is what we're going to dive into today. So thank you again, everybody, for joining. We have a good-sized crowd. I'll let Ricky introduce himself here in a second, but just want to go over a few housekeeping items. So if you want to look on the next slide, Ricky. Yeah, there we go. So this is a live webinar, so please feel free to ask any questions, and Ricky and I will do our best to answer. So there is a question section on the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. You don't have to wait until the end of the webinar to ask questions. Please just ask away. We'll be happy to stop in between slides to answer them, and that just makes the webinar more fun and interactive. And sorry in advance if I interrupt you, Ricky. But
oh, that's fine.
Yeah, if you have any good questions, I'll make sure to stop you so we can go over them. If we don't have time to answer everybody's questions, we'll be happy to send a follow-up after the webinar. There is also a poll section at the bottom right hand of the screen, and I believe there is a poll that's running already about Passkeys. So make sure you check those out. I mean, we'll run a few of those throughout the webinar. This can give you some good community insights, so feel free to check those out as well. And then finally, make sure you stay with us until the end. We're going to randomly draw 2 people who are going to win a pair of Apple AirPods. So just in time for the holidays, we'll announce the winners towards the end, and then I'll reach out to you guys individually to get those shipped out to you. But with that being said, hi again, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm going to give the floor to you, Ricky.
Thanks very much. So for those of you just joining, so my name's Ricky, and I'm the Director of Operations and Technology at the Migus Group. And so just a little bit about who the Migus Group are before we get stuck into the main webinar. We're a leading provider of enterprise identity and access management solutions for businesses of all sizes, especially SMBs across multiple industries. And we really focus on making sure we can help customers secure their digital identities, manage their access rights, comply with their industry standards and regulations, as well as making sure they meet all their cybersecurity insurance needs, which is really important these days with the increased amount of breaches that are happening constantly. We are a partner of Keeper. We know that we use their products every day in our own business, and we are experts in using their products and their developer integrations and some of the things that maybe you're not even aware of that Keeper has. And so really we like to focus on taking our customers just from the basic use case of password management and really expanding that and making them get a lot more out of the product for the price they pay, right? Everyone likes a good value for money, right? So let's talk a little bit about why passwords suck. So there's some statistics which some of you may be aware of, some of you may not, but you know, they're worth pointing out anyway. I mean, if each person every year to reset spends about 11 hours in resetting passwords every year. That's a lot of resources. 50% of help desk calls are password related. And you know, if every time you reset a password, it costs your business $70, well, and you reset, just think of how many passwords you have and how often they sometimes get reset. That's a lot of wasted money and a wasted time and resources. So one way we traditionally have combated that is by helping passwords become more secure is by adding MFA. So for those of you who are not sure what MFA is, it's multi-factor authentication. Multi-factor authentication is a way of adding an additional layer of security on top of your password to ensure that if someone was to breach your account, they not only needed your password, but they needed MFA, which essentially means that MFA blocks 99.9% of all account compromise attacks. And that was done from, that number was pulled from Microsoft. It was a very big study. And however, despite being as effective it is, the uptake of MFA has not been as good as it should. Microsoft say that about 28% of their users have MFA. And it's usually because either MFA is not implemented correctly and therefore very painful for end users to use, or there's too much friction for them to get into their accounts, adding all these extra steps of layers of security. So it can get complicated, especially if it's not implemented correctly. And so that MFA is usually you know, an SMS code or an authenticator app. I'm sure many of you have used them before through some of the apps you use every day. So if we can get rid of passwords, then that stands to reason that life will get a bit easier, right? And so there are technologies now that have been around a little while. Some are new, some are not, that can kind of get us to this passwordless future. So if it's not a password, then what is it? Well, it's biometrics, it's passkeys, and it's single sign-on. Hopefully you've heard of biometrics and passkeys already. I mean, you're on Passkey webinar, so it's right there, and you probably use single sign-on every day. All these passwordless methods give us better security, but just as importantly, a better user experience. If we can improve the user experience, we increase adoption for these, and then we, by proxy, increase security. So the downside of passwordless futures, though, is there's still a lot of legacy systems, and they're the main barrier to adoption for passwordless, because it's either extremely expensive to add passwordless features into those legacy systems and applications, or it's just not even physically possible because they're that old. So that's kind of the downside, but we'll talk about that a little bit more later and how we can overcome that. So let's talk about passkeys a little bit. So what are passkeys? So passkeys are more secure than passwords, and they're easier to use, as we've just talked about in the previous slide. They are a cryptographic key pair, which is used to log in to systems instead of a password. Now, that's very important. That's what makes it more secure. Is this cryptographic key pair, that private key and public key. The private key is on your device, is on your system, which we'll come back to later, why that can be a problem, but it makes it very unique to you. It's also very difficult to get hold of. I won't go into the weeds, but operating systems now have a secure way of securing these keys, and so attackers can't get to them or breach them from your device. Certainly not easily anyway. Passkeys are growing in popularity. You may have seen them in the news and the press, and most big websites are now supporting them natively. Adobe, Amazon, Google, GitHub, TikTok, WhatsApp, Uber, they all have passkey support now. And even Google have gone even as far as, I think it was end of October, made passkeys the default login for all users. So it's not even a question of should you use passkeys. Google are now forcing you to use passkeys because they are so much better. Right? Not everything is perfect in security. There's always downsides with every benefit. So some of the challenges with passkeys at the worst place are that passkeys stored on platforms like Google and Apple cannot be easily shared from one to another, from one platform to another, and that's by design, right? So passkeys are because it's bound to your device. You don't want to then give that copy to other people, just like a password, right? If you share a password around with everybody, then the chance of that password being compromised increases because more people have a copy of that password. Same is true for passkeys. So what companies do is they lock it in so you can't take the passkey out of the system, right? So your passkey for your Apple and your passkey for Google are different. And so you've got different passkeys. So now you've just got complicated passwords, right? So, and they're locked to that system. And like we already said, not every app system and application supports passkeys right now. But that is changing very, very quickly. So there's some of the drawbacks of passkeys. So,
quick question for you on passkeys, Ricky. Sorry
to
interrupt.
Go.
So first of all, we ran a poll trying to find out how many people have already used passkeys. Turns out 70% of the audience has not used passkeys for those who voted, which is interesting. But yeah, I feel like it's still pretty new. A lot of people may have seen it or heard of it, but have not started to use them yet. The other thing we have a question that asks, are passkeys essentially like MFA?
No, they're essentially an alternative to a password. And in fact, you can and probably should add MFA on top of your passkey. So you can combine the two for even better security. Right. But no, passkeys are not MFA. They replace a password. So if I log into a device, I can use my passkey automatically. It's going to get pulled from my device and used. I may then be prompted for biometrics or an MFA to then give that application tell that application, yes, I can use my passkey on this service. So yeah, it's a good question. Any other questions on passkeys before I move on?
No, we can move on to SSO.
Great. I'd actually be really curious to know is for those people who have not yet used passkeys, why? Is it because they don't know enough about them? Is it because the services they use don't support them yet? I'd love to know. So if you can drop that in and we'll circle back to that. We'll circle back to that. If you drop your answers in chat there, we'll circle back later on. So another way of passwordless is SSO. Many of you probably use SSO and don't even realize it. If you're not familiar with the term, let me know. But it stands for single sign-on. Where's my slide? There's my slide. Okay, so single sign-on. So you may be familiar with this. When you log into your workstation or your laptop in the morning, you may be logging into Microsoft account or a Google Workspace account, your company credentials, right? This is your these are identity providers. That term will be used a lot in a little while, and so that's what manages your identity. And we can use that to authenticate to other servers without needing a password. Now, the question might be, well, I need a password to sign in to my Microsoft or Google account, so is it really passwordless? And the answer is yes, it is, because it's considered passwordless because you sign into your workstation or your account once. You then don't have to, you can then sign into other services using those SSO credentials without re-entering your password, at least if it's configured and set up correctly. If you're being prompted every time you try and log into something via SSO, prompted for your password every time, that's a configuration issue. That's not it's intended. Right, so you should only need to provide those credentials and authenticate once, and then you can use that to sign into multiple services passwordlessly. And so we do keep it under the umbrella of passwordless, even though there is that initial password. And so by doing that, obviously, if you have less passwords where you don't have to type them out, you've got password fatigue is a term that seems to be common these days. You don't want to keep typing out passwords all the time. It also makes it incredibly easy to use because you can just click the sign in button and everything else is taken care of for you, right? Also, going back to the stats earlier, right? All those 50% of help desk tickets being to change passwords. Well, now you're reducing that number, right? So you're easing the burden on IT help desk, which means they can deal with problems that are customer problems and other problems that may be, more important or as important. And it also simplifies compliance. So many organizations and businesses have regulatory requirements and may get audited from time to time. Now, if everything's using the same identity provider to sign into these multiple apps, well, you only have to audit one thing, not 5 or 20 different ways of authenticating. So it streamlines the compliance and the audit aspect as well. So again, not everything's rosy. Everything has downsides. So with SSO security gaps, not everything is covered by SSO. There are still hundreds of thousands of cloud and apps that don't support SSO, or a personal bugbear of mine, which is even worse. They put it behind a paywall, and you have to pay them even more money just to get the security. And that kind of bugs me because it's already there. It's a feature. Why can I not be more secure, right? Why are you making me pay to make your service to be more secure, right? That bugs me. But anyway, that aside, not everything is covered, and certainly legacy SSO solutions. We've got much more better modern ones like your Google Workspaces, your Duo, your Okta, your Azure ADs. But there's some older ones out there that are complex and often difficult to set up. And as a result, they don't get properly deployed, or they get deployed with misconfigurations, and that can leave you exposed to compromise there. And so some of you may have seen in the news lately, Okta got breached. And so SSO does represent a single point of failure. If everything is using SSO, then you as secure as they might be, if I can get into that, then I have access to everything. So there's that trade-off to have, right? Do I have lots of credentials that could be any one of them could potentially breach, or do I have one really secure set of credentials which makes my life easier? But if they can get access to that, then now they can get access to everything. So it's a really difficult balance. There's no right answer for any one situation or any one company. You've got to weigh these pros and cons yourself, but there are a solution that can obviously bridge those gaps. I've gone backwards, not forwards.
I have a quick question for you, Ricky.
Yeah.
So someone asked, and you kind of went over this already, but someone is asking, how exactly does SSO work? So do you have like a quick sentence that could kind of summarize how SSO works?
Right. So they all work in the same thing. They all use a protocol called SAML2, which actually I'll cover later. I'll mention later on. But there's a standard. And so I'm just going to use Microsoft because it's the one I know well, but they all work the same way, right? So I use my Microsoft Azure AD Active Directory, that is, has my credentials, has my username and password. I log into Azure AD with those. There's then tokens on my system which say this user is trusted and it has these permissions. He's able to access these services. And then so when I then log into a different system, that is then passed on to them and to say, hey, we've already authenticated him, and these are the permissions and things he's allowed to do. And then the other person is already trusting that, because that's part of the setup, right? You have to connect those two together, integrate those two systems together, so it trusts that that's the case, and then it will say, okay, as a user, it may know some basic details about you, so like your email, for instance, because often email is used as a unique identifier, like a username, right? So it may say, here's this user with this username, they're able to access this. We've already authenticated him. So it really relegates the authentication to one identity provider. So in this instance is Microsoft Azure AD, but they all work the same, right?
Right.
Does that answer the question?
Yeah, thank you. I think the second part of the question was, if SSO provides access to across many different systems and applications. So the answer obviously is yes. And then you kind of went over this already, saying that the downside of SSO is that it's a single point of failure, and that it doesn't cover everything. So if you just deploy SSO, there's going to be many websites and applications and systems that are not covered. That could be a security breach there. So
right,
yeah,
right,
pretty much it.
Yeah, right. So passkeys are not completely fully supported. SSO is not completely fully supported. So there's kind of this gap in the middle, right? Which, oh look, straight into our next slide. How about that? How fortuitous. All right. So there's this gap there that SSO covers some use cases, passkeys cover other use cases. Well, what about the rest, right? And we still have to default to passwords, right? That's kind of the default when better solutions aren't available. And so I'm sure you can all probably guess what the missing part of this equation is, given you're on a webinar with Keeper and the Migus Group. So the solution is Keeper. Okay, so Keeper can really help bridge that gap. So not only can it, using its various components, the Keeper SSO Connect, the password manager, and the browser extension, all of which we'll cover in a minute, we can really kind of plug those gaps and actually enhance the SSO experience and enhance the passkeys experience, and really have everything have our cake and eat it too, right? That's probably the best way of putting it, right? So what does that look like? So Keeper is a full end-to-end encrypted passwordless authentication experience. It is easy to use. It's an affordable solution, and it solves, all of these problems. Again, I'll explain how in a moment. Pricing starts as little as $2 a user a month and kind of goes up from there, depending on what you need. But it really is a great solution to help. And this is not to be too salesy, but one of the benefits of using Keeper in your companies, you also get the for personal use as well, right? Adrien, it's kind of part of the deal.
Yes.
So you're not only securing users in your work, your employees in the workplace, but you're securing them in their personal life too. I mean, and who hasn't logged into their personal Gmail account or an Amazon account on a company device, or used a personal service on a company device? And so you want to make sure that your employees are secure all over, not just when they're at work, right?
Yeah, and the great thing on that too is that users not only get a free personal plan, they get a free family plan, so they can extend a Keeper license to up to five users, so for family or friends. Mm-hmm. So that's a pretty cool feature too.
So how does Keeper help you support this passwordless future? Well, users log into the Keeper Vault using biometrics or integrating with their IDP. So remember, IDP is identity provider such as Azure AD, Okta, Google Workspaces. And by integrating with those single sign-on methods or biometrics, you can get access to your Vault completely passwordless. As you can see on the little nice animation there, you can use biometrics just to log in quickly and easily. No typing of passwords, nothing.
We actually have a question on that, Ricky. Sorry to interrupt again.
No, please.
So someone's asking, are fingerprints or face recognition better than passwords? So essentially biometrics.
As a general rule, yes. So I don't want to get too in the weeds here. So device, fingerprints, Face ID, things like that, they have a technical rating that they're rated on how secure they are. And so certain apps like banking, for example, they require a certain level of certification in their security before you can use, say, Face ID to unlock and get into your banking app, right? So they're not all created equally, but most these days they're almost all better than passwords. In fact, I would say probably are all better than passwords these days, but they're not all necessarily created equally. If you've got, say, a MacBook, you're using Touch ID, or you're using an iPhone, you Face ID, or a modern Android device, you're almost certainly using the best biometrics that we have available outside of enterprise solutions, right? Using fancy things like retinal scanners and stuff. But yes, so essentially, yes, not all biometrics are created equally, but they're almost all better than passwords for sure. Right. Because it's something you have, right? They can't steal your fingerprint. Well, it's unless you're in a thriller TV movie or something, movie or something, right? They're not going to steal your thumbprint, whereas I can steal your password and use it somewhere else, right? So, there's this saying in security, right? It's something you have, something you are, right? Passwords are something you have. Well, biometrics is something I am, right? They can't take that away from me, right?
Right. And we do have another question on that, and is what if you're on a laptop that does not read fingerprints or Face ID?
Okay, so
it's kind of the downside of biometrics.
Yeah, so you can get access to your Keeper Vault with either biometrics or integrating with the IDP, such as Azure. So if you log into your laptop with a Microsoft account or a Google account or whatever, or some company credentials, those credentials will be used to log into your Vault. So biometrics is just one way you can have a passwordless experience into your Keeper Vault. So just to go into that a little more detailed, so that brings me in. So a component of Keeper is called Keeper SSO Connect, and I'll try not to be too technical, but there's a little bit of technical here. So it's a fully managed SAML2 service that integrates with all your SSO deployments, and it brings you and extends all that zero knowledge and zero trust security right out of the box and gives you least privilege, right? It solves that issue without needing to remember a master password because it's using SSO. You can use your company credentials. And the bit that I like the most about it is, and other people do not do this, is it integrates with a SCIM. And a SCIM, as you see there, it says System for Cross-Domain Identity Management. That's a mouthful. But SCIM basically is part of is a way that your identity provider can automatically provision you with a Keeper account and streamline the whole user experience without you needing to do anything, without you manager having to go set up your Keeper account and give to a new employee, right? Just by the fact that you have company credentials means you automatically get your own Keeper Vault. You just log in with your company credentials and everything is provisioned for you. Not only the Vault itself, but maybe you're automatically provisioned with access to certain credentials and passwords by default because you're on the marketing team, so you get access to the marketing information, or the accounting team, you get access to all the accounting credentials. So all of that user experience is taken out of managers' hands and out of the individual's hands, asking people, can I have access to this? Can I have access to this? Because it has this very in-depth integration with SCIM, which is super powerful. Let's move on. So your Keeper Vault obviously can generate, store, and secure your passkeys. So if you are using services that support passkeys, you can generate new passkeys in Keeper rather than having it saved on your device, like we mentioned earlier. This then you can access through the Keeper mobile app, desktop app, and browser applications. Very easy to use. Download them from any app store, and you sign in and you're good to go, right? I'm just conscious of time, so I'm going a bit quicker now, sorry. So for anything that's not supported by Passkeys and SSO, you're going to have a password for, and so that's what Keeper does, right? It can generate, store, and secure your passwords, but it can also enforce two-factor authentication and password policies. So your two-factor authentication can be inside of Keeper, just like that little animation is showing you right this second. And so you haven't got to do this thing where someone signs up for 2FA with their phone, and then you're like going, hey, Dave, what's the 2FA code? Can you tell it to me? Because you need to access the thing, right? It's all there for you, and you're all sharing the same 2FA. You also automatically get notified if any of the credentials you're being used are breached on the dark web. So you've got this dark web monitoring service. So then those passwords can be changed immediately before any compromise happens. And so to complete the experience from Passwordless, you can get into your password vault with SSO or Biometrics. So there's a passwordless experience. All of your credentials are in the vault, and you can launch the services straight from the Keeper vault and automatically log in using the browser extension. So the browser extension will automatically fill in the passkeys or the passwords. So you've got this full end-to-end seamless passwordless experience. And the browser extension works across all the major browsers, and even a few that are not major. And so just to finish off, if you want to then take that one step further, especially if we have any developers or sysadmins or any operations staff on the webinar today, is earlier this year, Keeper released the next gen PAM platform. PAM stands for Privileged Access Management. So it's comparable to CyberArk or Delinea or Segura or Beyond Trust. And so, but it does this in a more cost-effective, easier to use way. Not to go into the too detail in the weeds, but this will help you keep your non-human accounts secure. So not your personal credentials to get into a website, but these are things called service accounts and other things which do things behind the scenes that still need access, that deal with infrastructure and things like this. So there's an extra layer of security we can add there if after you've kind of solved the use cases we have earlier to then make the whole organization secure, not just the individuals, right? And I think we're back to you.
Yes. So yeah, thank you again, Ricky. We got a ton of questions. I didn't want to interrupt you because I was afraid we were going to run out of time.
Oh, I don't mind. I don't mind. We can run over.
Right. But yeah, so if anyone would be interested in attending a demo of Keeper, we do offer a free 3-year plan for our personal password manager. So feel free to go on the link that's on the screen right now. So it's keeper.io/free. You can schedule a demo. We'll get you set up with a personal plan. But yeah, thank you again. This was great. We do have a few questions. And actually, I want to go back to the poll that you asked us to run. So we asked people, why haven't they, for those who haven't used Passkeys yet, what's the reason for it? And most of them, almost half of them, is because they're not familiar with them. So it's still, it's a pretty new concept. Not everyone's familiar with.
And I think what'll really happen over the next year is you'll see a lot more about it from people as they're starting to figure out what's the best way I can help my users enroll in Passkeys. Google are probably leading the charge on this by already making it default, right? They have a pretty easy system flow to get you to sign it, use it, creating your first passkey, adding it to your account and things. That's not super technical, and a lot of companies are trying to figure out that part. That's the difficult part, is helping users adopt it, right?
Right.
And the education. So yeah, that I think over the next year it's going to be super common, and you'll get, if you start. The sooner you start using Passkeys, the more ahead of the curve you're going to be, and the more secure you're going to be compared to everybody else.
Right. And they're honestly super easy to use. It just makes the sign-in process super easy. And the other thing too is we can save those in our Keeper Vault, so it just makes it secure and
Yep.
easy to share. I mean, it's pretty easy. All right. With that being said, so we do have a few questions. We're going to try to get to them after this, but just wanted to, as we're going to run over time here, I just wanted to announce the 2 winners. So the 2 winners for our raffle prize are going to be Peter Baresic. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. And then Dustin Bost. So we're going to reach out to you individually, get your address, ship them this week. Hopefully you'll get them before Christmas. But thank you again, everyone, for attending. If you want to hang out a little bit longer, we're going to be answering a few questions, if that's okay with you.
Yep.
Okay.
Let's get them all answered. And if I don't answer them here on the call, I'll make sure I respond in chat. So.
All right, awesome, thank you. So there was one question that asks if we said that Google Workspace is an identity provider.
What was the question? Sorry.
Oh, they asked if Google Workspace is an identity provider.
Yes. Yep. You can log into your Google Workspace with you can log into Keeper with your Google Workspace credentials. Yeah, with your Google account. Yeah. And
Perfect.
and to be clear, it has to be a business level Google Workspace. You can't just use your regular Gmail to log in. That's not the same thing, right? It looks the same thing to the user, but it's not the same thing behind the scenes, right?
Yeah. And we got another question, and we answered a similar one earlier, but someone was asking, is Passkeys substitute to security question or MFA?
I wish security questions would die off. They're incredibly insecure and incredibly easy to get around, especially when people actually put answers to the questions. And so, it's really easy for me to go on any social media site and find out, what your maiden name is or what your dog's name was or whatever, right? Securities questions should die very, very quickly. Not quickly enough. And so it's not, Passkeys aren't a substitute for MFA, but like as mentioned earlier, MFA can be used with Passkeys to make the whole process even more secure.
Right. Actually, we do have another good question on Passkeys here. What contingencies are there for planning for lost Passkeys?
Oh, that's an excellent question. All right. So you can have more than one passkey, right? So if we take Google for the example, because they're the one. If I'm getting into a Google account, I can assign more than one passkey to my account because, like I say, traditionally passkeys are tied to the device. So my phone will have a passkey, my laptop will have its own passkey, but they're all allowed to access my Google account. So you can have multiple passkeys on an account, and so that is your redundancy, right? Firstly, that is one way, right? Is you can have multiple devices. So if you lose your laptop or it breaks, well, I can still get access on my phone. And then when I get a new laptop, I can then enroll it because I still have access from my phone. The better way is put your passkeys in Keeper, and then you won't lose them because Keeper aren't going to lose them for you, right? Unless you delete the record and you're the record owner and you delete it. But even then, I'm sure, even then there's ways we can add more than one passkey on as well. So use Keeper, use a password vault is answer one, but answer two is you can have more than one passkey on an account.
Right. Excellent. And then we have one last question. This is more a Keeper question, so I can take this one. So is Keeper only for company or personal? And does every employee have to have it, or can I decide to roll it out only to a few people in the organization? So we do both. We have personal subscription plans, but also we do have plans for businesses of all sizes. You can buy as many licenses as you want, so that is up to you, but obviously we recommend to extend it to every employee at the organizations, because everyone who's not covered could potentially be a security risk. And then we do have another question.
Can I just add to that?
Sorry.
Can I just add to that? So, I mean, and if money is a deciding factor, you could also certainly roll it out to your most susceptible users. So your C-suite executives, your system admins and things. And that's where, when we talked about SCIM earlier, which other password managers don't support, where's the slide? Have I gone too far? Yeah. So this SCIM, this is the way you can do that, by saying if this person is a member of this OU in Active Directory or member of this group, they automatically get access or not. And that's the way you can be selective over which people have it. However, as a security professional, everybody is at risk. So if you can, secure everybody, right? But if you can't, then you can secure your most privileged users using the functionalities that Keeper offer that other people don't.
Sweet. Yeah, sorry, Ricky. We do have 2 more questions that came in. Okay, all right. The first one is, what are the provisions for allowing people to access their client's account for various purposes, social media managers, website managers, and how will this work without passwords? So that's kind of a PAM question right there.
So say the question again. I'm not sure it's completely PAM.
What are the provisions for allowing people to access their clients' accounts for various purposes?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's about, and how will this work without passwords? So I think this ties back to the vault and being able to share.
Yeah. So if you don't have a password and you have a passkey, it's still vaulted in Keeper. So it's still a passwordless experience for you if you're using Keeper, whether it's a password or a passkey. Passkeys are obviously more secure. So it works exactly the same as a password, even if it's a passkey. If they said client, so are they an MSP? I'd be because that's a slightly different, more complicated use case, which is probably beyond the scope of this. But if you reach out to me, I put my email on the slide. You can reach out to me. We can talk about that use case more if you're an MSP. But if you're a small business, maybe managing other people's social media sites, well, you can essentially just keep them separate within your vault and share them with your clients, only that shared folder, right? There's lots of ways to solve that problem. Yeah.
Right. And then someone has another PAM question there. So can you assign permissions so that not everyone has access to the bank account, for example?
Yes. In fact, it's usually the other way, right? No one will have access to it unless you give them access to it, right?
Right.
So going back to what was on a previous side of least privilege, that's the term there, right? Is I decide what you get access to and don't get access to.
Yeah.
So you may decide this folder, this shared folder that has the bank account information and maybe accounting software credentials in, only people in the accounting team can have access. So you can just give everyone in the accounting team access. Or if it's super sensitive, an individual only has access, not even a whole team. So that's all of that is nuanced and very much dependent on you and your organization. And that's the kind of thing we do at the Migus Group. We can help you figure out those decisions, right? And make it work for you so that you're not restricting your users to access to resources, but at the same time, you're adhering to least privilege principles.
Yeah. We have another question from John I can answer here. What is the cost for Keeper for business and for personal? So feel free to check check our website. For business, it'll start at $2 per month per user, and then for personal plan, it's also there on the website, but there is a free trial. So feel free to sign up for a free trial, test it out, and see if you like it. And then another question is, what are your thoughts on products like YubiKeys, and how would they integrate into a solution with Keeper? So we do integrate with YubiKey, but are you able to speak a little bit more on how that works?
Right. YubiKeys usually are used as a second factor, right? So you're still having your password, or whatever. If you're using Passkeys, you don't really need a YubiKey as well, because under the hood, they're actually using the same FIDO2 protocol. At least modern YubiKeys are. So that, yeah, if you want to dig any deeper into the technical, FIDO2 is the underlying specification there, which YubiKey uses. And so there is a use case where your passkeys aren't stored in a vault. You can store your passkey on a YubiKey. But if you lose your YubiKey, then you've lost your passkey, right? Which is why we say vaults are better, because it's not going to get lost. It's a cloud service.
Right.
But you can use a YubiKey as a multi-factor authentication for the accounts that aren't passwordless, that aren't using SSO or aren't using passkeys. It's a good idea. It's probably the most secure MFA method. It is the most secure MFA method there is.
Right.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time, Ricky. We've gone through every question, so thank you for staying a little bit over
My
here.
pleasure.
But,
my pleasure.
Yeah, no, this was a great presentation. Thank you, everyone, for attending. Congrats again to Peter and Dustin, who won a pair of Apple AirPods, and we'll do more of those webinars throughout the year. So thanks again, everyone. Ricky, I'll get in touch with you after this webinar, but thanks so much again for your time.
Thank you very much.
This was a great presentation.
Thanks for the great questions, everybody.
All right.
It.
Oh, and we recorded this event, so we'll share that with everybody this week or the week after. But yeah, thank you, everyone. Happy holidays. Happy New Year, and we'll be in touch. Thanks, Ricky.
Thanks, man.
Bye.